she's one of the very, very few people you could say you never hear anything about for probably over 20 years. No appearances, nothing. Have you ever heard anything about what happened to Sunshine?
Well, I don't know that anything happened to her. I don't want to spread
not that anything
rumor.
Happened, but just where is Sunshine?
Understand she was kidnapped by the Sandinistas, but otherwise than that, I have no knowledge.
Valerie French, right?
Well, yes. And now that you mention it, and now that you've brought it up, because I haven't actually thought about where's Sunshine lately, but that is I hope she's doing well somewhere, but it's amazing that she hasn't made any of these reunions or anything like that. Because she went to Mid-South with Ken Mantell for Watts in
86, 87,
86, when he became Booker and took a lot of took a lot of the Dallas talent rather to Watts. And is that the last thing she did?
I think so. She was with the Freebirds, actually. And then I don't think she ever did anything ever again. If she did, it probably would have only been in Dallas, but I don't remember her after that point. And again,
a glowing endorsement of traveling with the Freebirds.
Well, that's the thought I have. Unfair or fair, I don't know. Just she was a young girl around world class when there was more partying than ever before. If that affects you, that could affect you in a way you're like, I don't want anything to do with this business again if you're around the wrong crowd.
Well, yes, but now in all fairness to all parties, she was young in terms of younger than you and I are right now, but she was old enough to know better and probably enjoyed a few things before, and did at one point when I was there in Dallas have issues with keeping her schedule and etc. But we don't know that anything real bad happened like that. But we would like to wish her well wherever she is in the Federal Witness Protection Program.
Think about it. I mean, there have been documentaries by WWE and by that Heroes of World Class documentary that other people did.
Nobody.
There have been movies about the Von Erichs, Dark Side of the Ring. No one ever addresses where Sunshine went. She's never interviewed. No one references her. It's weird.
And again, she was, with the exception of the Von Erichs, and I mean, she may have been at one point there when the valet angle was going on, she may have been more popular than the Fantastics or any of the other, baby faces not named Von Erich.
She was the valet that put valets really on the map for the 80s.
And so, and she was a lot of the Chris Adams appeal when they were facing Garvin.
Hey, can I play one more
Nobody
thing?
Talks anything about, yeah, you go ahead.
Here's the famous...
I'm just pissed off about Sunshine being glossed over.
Here's the famous promo I said before that may be the greatest promo any woman has ever done in professional wrestling. Sunshine, November 12th, 1983, after Jimmy Garvin leaves the stable of Sunshine or the side of Sunshine to be with her assistant, Precious, who no one knew was really married to Jimmy Garvin, so it was perfect. It made perfect sense. Let's go to this press conference.
He's on all right. Test. Can you hear it out there okay? Fine. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen of the press, for being in attendance today. Sunshine has asked me to be her personal representative, and I'd like to announce to you the fact that she has a statement for you. It'll be a prepared statement. She will read it, after which there will be no questioning at all. Once again, thanks for showing up, and without further ado, here's Sunshine.
Everybody knows by now what's happened here. Everybody knows how Jimmy, in that sorry excuse for a woman, dumped me. Well, Jimmy, you're not going to get away with it. You hear me? Because after everything I did for you, you think you can get away with that. Well, then you underestimate me. You come up to me with a gift, right? An assistant for me, supposed to be helping me. Well, I'll tell you one thing. You kind of, the only thing she's been good for is to get in between us. I'll tell you one thing. Of course, I left you. And I took everything. Well, I'll tell you one other thing. If you look around a little bit, you're going to find out that I took the tapes. All those tapes I took for you through the years, because you asked me to do it. I took the medical history and everything. And if you want it back, don't come looking for me. Go to Chris Adams' house. Because that's why I sent him. Because I hope he can use them to beat you in an American title match that's coming up. And one other thing, I'm going to be there. And I'm not going to be by your side like I always was either. I'm going to be looking you straight in the eye. And I'm going to watch you go down on that mat and lose that night.
Let me stop it for a second because she pauses before she keeps going. It's incredible how good she is at making it feel real.
Again, it's like everybody that saw that, because this is a vindictive woman that's been scorned or dumped or whatever. And of course, the tapes and the medical records were the story that because she had been with Garvin, she knew not only the tapes, the reports on his opponent, but also his weaknesses and his medical records. And she's going to Chris Adams's house. And because Adams is the guy that is Garvin's arch enemy.
Well, also, they set that up when they first came in because Jimmy Garvin at first wouldn't wrestle on TV. He had tapes of everyone else, but no one was going to have tape of him. The whole thing with the tapes was from the very moment they got there a year earlier.
And the thing is that it's perfect because it sounds like such she. And here's the thing: of Precious, Patty was married to Jimmy. She was his wife, but there were. Sunshine was Jimmy's cousin from Florida that when he got the idea for the gimmick, I don't think he wanted it because they had kids. I don't think he wanted Patty to be on the road all the time. So he asked her if she wanted, Sunshine, if she wanted to do it. And then, but as it got over so well and became an established thing, and then I think Jimmy thought, well, this could be a way Patty could be making a lot of fucking money here because they were together they were making double pay in wrestling for 4 good years there as a married couple. So they brought Patty in and that established the valet versus valet thing that then came Missy Hyatt and then came Dark Journey and then came every other feuding bunch of girls that followed.
Even Elizabeth. I mean, that was still part of the wave of valets that started with Sunshine, but let's go back to this promo.
As far as that tramp of yours is concerned, if she gets near me, there's going to be a war. As a matter of fact, you know, you turned against me. I've done everything for you. You turned against me and went on her side. She cost you that match. You know she did. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be the American champion, Jimmy. You probably wouldn't be anything. When that match comes up and you go down and you lose and he's got you on that mat and holding you down, if I get close enough to you, I'm going to scratch your eyes out. And if that little tramp of yours comes near me, I'll pull every hair out of her head. And I'll pull her clothes off and expose her for what she is, and you know what she is to everybody.
Let me stop it there for a second. Do you believe her?
Yes. See, that's the thing. This is not bullshit. This is in Dallas, Texas in 1983, half of the fucking men in town had heard these pretty much very words, I'm sure. It doesn't sound like wrestling bullshit. It sounds like it's real.
Jimmy, all this wouldn't be necessary. I don't know why you did this to me. You know, you asked me to do things that I wouldn't dream of doing before. I turned against everything I believed in and everything I was brought up to be. You turned me into something totally different because I loved you, Jimmy. I don't understand why
Ladies and gentlemen of the press, under the circumstances, no, I'm terribly sorry. I'm sure under these circumstances that you can understand that we're going to have to call a halt to this press conference. She's emotionally charged up and disturbed about the situation. Please bear with us, but we will have to call it off at this time. Thank you for being in attendance.
And there at the end was where she switches babyface. That's why she did all those, because she's been interfering for Garvin and, cheating and helping him win against all their favorite wrestlers. But now this is what the deal was. It was all him. He turned her against everything she was brought up to believe. And boom goes the dynamite. She's the most popular fucking person on the television show.
Yeah, see, everyone there saw her cheat for him, and now she gave the justification. I loved you. And that's the thing that breaks her at the end, that she loved him. And man, the other important thing to note is, not really because of this, because of the Von Erichs and Von Erichs Freebirds, there were more women coming to wrestling in Dallas than maybe anywhere else.
Oh, yeah.
And this was the only thing involving women on the show. So in front of that audience, this really blew up.
And I would say that at that time, because the rock and roll hadn't gone to Charlotte yet, and they brought women to Mid-South, but it was nothing like Dallas. That was the most female-dominated crowd.
And this is 83 Dallas. That's the hottest year, isn't it?
Yes. But even in 85, it was still, they were, for a few years, not only were they red hot, and this was one of the top deals, but they were heavily, was it 60% sometimes? Probably.
You see, that's the thing too, like when people get mad at us sometimes, specifically you, for criticizing any of the women's promos, not matches or anything, but just the promos. When we say a Mercedes Moné doesn't seem natural, for me, I'm judging it on stuff like this that drew me in, that I believed. Even though I know it's a work, I believe there's something going on. She's crying. There's a way to do it and do it well, and this is a great example of it.
And you know what? With Jimmy Garvin, have you seen what he looks like today?
I have.
He's bald.
Well, there's
not one hair on his head.
Well, he certainly celebrated the years that he had with the big curly hair.
But he never did a hair match. Can you imagine?
Looked like he was in Toto.
Yeah, exactly. Or Three Dog Night. And he could have doubled for Chuck Negrin, right? But nevertheless, if he'd have only done a hair match in his prime when he had the hair to put up in the match, and then not only could they have sold tickets to it, Brian, but they could have got a sponsorship. Can you imagine if you'd have told our friends at Harry's that Jimmy Garvin is going to get his head shaved in the middle of the Coliseum in Charlotte, and it's going to be with a Harry's razor? Can you imagine what they would have ponied up?
Imagine that. Imagine when your head was shaved in the middle of the ring. Imagine if they had a sturdy razor like a Harry's razor.
Imagine if they'd had a quality piece of merchandise that they wouldn't have had to take the goddamn top layer of my skin off with as well. All of these things. See, Harry's could have been a big deal in the wrestling business for a long time when guys still got their head shaved and they were scared of it. Now the people look good with their head shaved now. Where did these mutants with differently shaped heads come along the last generation or show? Generation or so, and show up and fucking scare everybody with their bald heads. But nevertheless, folks, if you'd like to take the hair off your face and slap somebody else in the face with it, our friends at Harry's can help you out with at least the first part of that, because we've mentioned before, not only is Harry's a pleasure to deal with as a business. I mean, Harry himself is sending these razors out. He works late at night in his garage, sending these razors out by the literal thousands. But also, Harry has German-engineered blades that he is making in his own factory. Now, apparently his factory is not in Germany. They engineered them, and that he's making them in his own factory, but they stay sharp longer. And there's 5 blades to the cartridge. That means if the first blade stretches the hair out The second blade stretches it out even further. The third blade starts to cut it, but just kind of gnaws on it. The fourth blade brings it all the way out by the follicle, and the fifth blade slaps that son of a bitch off right at the root. That's the way it works.
That's the way it works.
And you can get now the trial set. If you don't believe me, and who in the world would make something like that up? If you don't believe me, you can get a $13 trial set for just $3 right now at harrys.com/JCE. Now there's no apostrophe in Harry's. It's just HARRYS. So don't be confused. But again, the trial set where you get the German engineered 5-blade razor with the ergonomically designed handle, the foaming shave gel, and the travel cover so you don't cut yourself inadvertently when you're ruffling through your suitcase, because that sometimes those can be fatal. You hear that sometimes more than 3,000 tourists a year slice an artery on a razor in their bag that's uncovered.
You don't hear that, and again, let's not, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about today. Let's not pretend that has anything to do with what we're talking about today. We're talking about Harry's.
What are we talking about today?
Harry's with no apostrophe.
Well, and they've also got, there's an apostrophe when you're just talking about them, but there's not on the website.
Oh,
but also they have some other great products at harrys.com, such as the skin softening body wash in scents like redwood, wildlands, and stone. Actually, I smell more like cement. They've got the extra strength, high quality, amazing smelling deodorant. It goes for just $5. So you can smell good cheaply. And hair and grooming products and mustache waxes and various beard snoods and apparatuses to hold your shit together. But you get the $13 trial set for just $3 right now at harrys.com/JCE. You're saving $10 from what you would normally pay to what you would pay now with that secret code. Get more performance out of your shave with Harry's.
That's right. You know what Jimmy Garvin said when he shaved off all of his facial hair?
What did he say?
It's not my fault.
I'd workshop that one if I were you.
Shit.
Well, he might have said shit. That might have been funnier if he'd have just said shit when he shaved all of his hair off.
Guilty pleasure of mine is 1986 Jimmy Garvin when he comes into work for Crockett. He was just so different than everyone else and so over the top, coming out the sharp-dressed man and doing his little dance while just was spraying around him. Big mark for 86 Jimmy Garvin.
It was a tremendous wrestling gimmick, and it worked in Dallas, and it worked in Charlotte. And that's why that the 1989 Freebirds were doomed, because even though Michael and Jimmy were legitimately personal friends, you couldn't change people's perception of Jimmy Garvin into some kind of rock and roll badass rebel. He was a foo-foo, he was a foo-foo guy in sequins with a fucking valet, and he's gorgeous, and he's got the gorgeous George perfume sprayer, and you can't suddenly become goddamn Bruiser Brody. Didn't work. But anyway, your shave from Harry's will work.
Hey, weird question for you, because it involves you, and everything involving the initial angle was amazing when you burn Ronnie Garvin, but it turned Jimmy Garvin babyface. Do you think he stayed babyface too long?
Oh,
because I think he was much better as a heel. Again, my enjoyment of Jimmy Garvin changes once he becomes a babyface, and then once the Flair feud happens, and JJ wants to hide in the closet, and Ronnie Garvin once again dresses a drag.
Well, the Garvin brothers were a good tag team, and for a short time, and the people accepted them, and for a short time, as an odd couple tag team, and Precious was still part of the mix, they worked, and I think that Jimmy should have gotten, the shots at Flair, because that was, he was an over personality. But I also I may have to agree with you that, after that, that gimmick or character, as the kids would say these days, with the female valet, And the whole way that he'd been presented, it didn't lend itself in that talent-crowded territory, and at that time to be a long-term babyface thing. And, and then obviously after a while, Patty didn't want to be on the road anymore and was staying home with the kids, and that's why Jimmy became a free bird, but it wasn't a shining day for the Freebirds.
No, that was my first exposure to the Freebirds.
Oh.
And Terry Gordy was like there at the very beginning because it was 89 NWA, so they were still kind of a trio. And then Terry Gordy was like, the money over here in Japan is just so good. Why am I still doing this with Michael?
Well, not even really just with WCW and just, the whole thing. He didn't need to come over there and work that hard even for that much money in front of that small of fucking crowds at that time period.
When everyone talks about like the problems, and I know we're going to talk about the Rick Steamboat documentary on probably the Drive-Thru, but the problems with NWA in 1989 and Jim Herd and the talent that left or were chased away or had their contract offers taken off the table. You think of Terry Funk, retired, Ricky Steamboat, gone, Wyndham, chased off, Tully and Arn. Well, Tully doesn't come in. Not enough people mention that Terry Gordy was gone. Terry Gordy was there, and then he was gone.
Yeah. Oh, but we'll get to that later on in the program when we start solving the continuing mystery of who killed WCW.
But just to put a cap on that, Harry's.com.
Yes, and the hairy people that need them.